cosmic event causes people deprived of intimacy to gain psychic abilities. However, one of them plots to use their powers to control the world and make everyone give in to their true desires. Yoshiro has always fantasized about romance but hasn't had luck with it. In contrast, his parents are vocal about their desires for each other despite Yoshiro being next to them. Frustrated, he pleases himself while imagining his many crushes but ultimately can't decide which of them is his special lady. Before he was born, he had a telepathic connection with a child in another woman's belly. The two decided to meet after they were born, so they made up a song that would leave into each other. Since then, Yoshiro has been looking for that girl, deciding that she's his destiny. Just then, a light from space crashes outside his home, interrupting his private time. When Yoshiro has breakfast with his parents the next day, he finds them still openly expressing their desires, though they claim they haven't said anything. At school, his classmate Miyuki overhears schoolmates complimenting her. She thanks them, but the students are confused because they haven't said anything. Meanwhile, Yoshiro is distracted as he can hear everyone's thoughts. He passes by his teacher Shizuka, who's scolding students with revealing uniforms. However, Yoshiro hears her thoughts and discovers that she is doing this to be the most attractive woman in the school. Just then, Yoshiro's crush Asami arrives, and the man's interest in her becomes noticeable. Miyuki suddenly kicks Yoshiro, appalled that he gets excited over a pretty lady. Yoshiro defends in his mind that it was an accident, and Miyuki rolls her eyes, doubting him before walking away. Only then does Yoshiro realize that she responded to his thoughts, discovering that Miyuki is also a telepath. Meanwhile, Miyuki passes by some of her admirers and realizes that she hears their thoughts. That afternoon, Professor Takahiro drives while his eyes are on his assistant Akiyama. He notes that the local hospitals have recorded patients who claim to have gotten psychic abilities, so they'll investigate this. Meanwhile, Yoshiro goes to the bookstore to research psychics and discovers that they're meant to be heroes who don't give in to physical desires. This makes him fantasize about being a hero, though he is conflicted about giving up his physical desires. Just then, he hears the bookstore attendant Keiko wondering about his taste in women. Interested, he approaches her, but gets distracted when a magazine suddenly floats out of the store. He tries to follow the magazine, but gets distracted by Saya, the granddaughter of the arcade shop owner. On the way home, he passes by a restaurant and witnesses the owner, Teru, pretending to do private acts. To his surprise, he discovers the magazine that floated out of the bookstore in the restaurant, though he dismisses it as a coincidence. However, Teru soon reveals his telekinetic powers while trying to sell him an intimate device. Disgusted, the student leaves, appalled at the man for using his powers for such things instead of saving the world. On another day, Yoshiro fantasizes about being Asami's hero, but gets interrupted when he hears the thoughts of another admirer, Yosuke. Asami then goes to the lockers to change, and Yoshiro hears the other man planning to follow her. He sees this as his chance to be a hero, so he goes to stop Yosuke, only to discover that he can teleport while leaving his clothes behind. The teleporter appears inside the women's locker, scaring the students except for Asami, who is more curious. Yosuke then disappears, and Miyuki hears that Asami thinks he was cool. Just then, Yoshiro storms into the room, causing the women to scream. Following him is Takahiro, who has identified Yoshiro and Miyuki as psychics. He and Akiyama also catch Yosuke and Teru, the latter of whom becomes instantly attracted to the assistant. Akiyama foresees that Teru will slip and fall if she shows him what he wants. And when she does, her prediction actually happens. This reveals that Akiyama is also a psychic. Soon, the psychics are gathered in the research facility, where they meet Yabe, who has X-ray vision. Takahiro recounts how 200 years ago, there was a psychic awakening in Minnesota after cosmic rays hit a town. The same happened to their city days ago and gave the group psychic powers because they fit a specific criteria. Yoshiro assumes that they're the chosen ones, but Takahiro explains that the criteria are their inexperience with intimacy and pusing themselves during the exposure to the cosmic rays. This makes the man turn to Miyuki, surprised that a lady would also enjoy such private activities. Embarrassed, Miyuki declares that women are also allowed to be interested in such things. As if to prove this, Takahiro shares that Akiyama volunteered to become a psychic for their research and committed the act, so she now has premonitions on people staring at her. Changing topics, Miyuki asks what happened to the psychics from Minnesota. To their horror, Takahiro Takahiro reveals that they were all killed because some took advantage of their powers. With that in mind, he orders them to report any other psychics that they discover to protect the city. Just then, Asami enters the room, revealing that she is Tadahiro's daughter. To Yoshiro's horror, she takes an interest in Yosuke instead of Hen. Despite this, the idea that he'll be a hero uplifts his mood. Later, outside the research building, Bakiko decides to cause some trouble. Having been given a psychic ability on that fateful night, the usually shy boat skipper has found her confidence and decides to pursue beautiful ladies since men don't interest her. The next day, the psychic group, now called the ESP Force, films the beginning of their journey, though Miyuki thinks it's ridiculous. While Miyuki is uncomfortable with the idea of joining the deprived men in the group, Akiko becomes interested in a lady who passes by her hut. She uses her psychic powers to make her freeze, allowing Akiko to fawn over the lady. Just then, Asami passes by, and Akiko falls in love with her. Later, the ESP Force throws a party, though Yoshiro thinks they should start fighting crying. A fan of the psychics joins them and is amazed by the men's powers. However, as everyone gets heated up by their display of abilities, Asami gets disgusted upon hearing their desires, so she storms off. This ultimately destroys Yosuke's chances with her. Because of this, Yoshiro is convinced that Asami is his destined lady, so he goes through the park where he dreamed about meeting her, hoping it will come true. When it doesn't, he diverts his focus back on becoming a hero. That night, Takahiro and Akiyama meet with the journalist Teiko and her friend Detective Mitsui at the school. Shizuka also joins them as they discover dolls piled up in a classroom. Takahiro believes that this is a challenge for the ESP Force, so he investigates and discovers that touching the powder on the dolls has an effect on non-psychic women. The following day, Yoshiro overhears Asani humming a song similar to the one he made up with his destined lady. This strengthens his belief that she is the one. During class, Shizuka introduces a new teacher, Aiko. To everyone's surprise, the woman declares that their planet is in a crisis as they'd been deprived of affection. She encourages the students and their teacher to embrace their desires. Later, Aiko finds Yoshiro staring at Asami. She touches his head and learns that he is in love with his classmate. The next day, Akiko bids farewell to the ladies exiting her hut. After having her fun, she decides to find her ultimate goal, Asami. When she goes to the city, however, she sees Miyuki playing with a mascot and becomes attracted to her too. Nearby, Yoshiro finds himself unmotivated since his hero's journey hasn't begun yet. Saya tries to cheer him up, but his boredom makes him want to please himself instead. Just then, the Yuki enters to ask for an extra shirt since she got wet from the rain. Seeing her this way tempts Yoshiro, so Saya appeases that he likes her. Embarrassed, the man runs away. On another day, Akiko uses her powers to release a mysterious aura into the sea. Soon, Yoshiro, Teru, and Miyuki find people choosing to wear less clothing. When they arrive at school, Aiko touches Teru and Miyuki to learn their powers, revealing that she is also a psychic who can see memories. Elsewhere, Takahiro and Akiyama notice the civilians experiencing increased desires. A group of protesters have also begun to demand freedom to indulge in their desires. Mitsui is trying to control the situation, but the city's officers can't use force on the ladies. With this, Takahiro volunteers to negotiate, but Aiko stops him and interrogates the protesters instead. She demands to know who their leader is, so Akiko presents herself, announcing that she has control over the protesters. Aiko warns the woman to surrender peacefully, but the villain orders her protesters to attack. Before they can, however, another psychic woman appears and turns the protesters into dolls. This scares the onlookers, but Takahiro shifts his focus on Akiko, only to find that she has escaped. Meanwhile, the mysterious woman slips out of the crowd undetected. Later, Basami's friends take an interest in Akiko's hut, so they take a peek despite the former's protest. When they're caught, they immediately run away, leaving Asami behind. This gives Akiko her chance to take the lady. Afterward, someone rings the bell for a ride across the river, so Akiko does her job and sees that her customers are Yoshiro and Miyuki. Recognizing the lady, Akiko also moves to take her after Yoshiro leaves. As the days progress, the citizens' desires heighten. Yoshiro is determined to find the cause of this, but he suddenly gets a call from Asani, inviting him to meet up. Thinking his dream is about to happen, he rushes to the park and is stunned to see Asani doing exactly what he fantasized about. This cements his belief that she is the girl he met before being born. She then holds his hand. thanking him for helping with her father's research. To his surprise, she also invites him to a hotel where they can do what they want. Stunned by her forwardness, the man hesitates since doing the act might cancel his powers, so he begrudgingly refuses. Suddenly, the mysterious woman turns Asami into a doll. Because of this, the guy calls the rest of the ESP force to report what happened. The mysterious woman explains that this Asami wasn't real but a doll. It copied the real Asami who should still be alive. She introduces herself as Julie, a psychic from Minnesota whose power cancels evil influences. The group gathers at Teru's restaurant where Julie clarifies that some psychics survived the fight years ago. She is a descendant of one of the survivors, revealing that the powers become hereditary. She warns them that many of the women have been copied into dolls, and as if to prove this, Mitsui calls Tatahiro, sharing that there are many reports of missing women in the city. The women were last seen at the ferry hut, so the ESP force plans to investigate. To do this, they have Yoshiro pretend to be a woman at the hut while the others watch from afar. Instead of him, however, Akiko targets Akiyama. Luckily, the woman evades her attack and seduces the villain to see into her future. Realizing this, Akiko escapes. Akiyama reports to her comrade that the woman will head to City Hall, so they march their way there. Upon arriving, they discover the missing women unconscious in the auditorium. They suddenly hear Asami calling them, only to find 3 of the same women in the lobby. Yabe uses his X-ray vision and confirms that they're all dolls. Akiko then confronts them and calls the rest of her dolls, which now includes Keiko, Saya, Mitsui, and Shizuka. Immediately, Julie turns them back into dolls, but more arrive, cornering the group while Akiko escapes. Aiko pulls Yoshiro back to the auditorium to escape, but traps him inside a womb-like structure along with 2 others on the stage. He discovers that the real Asami is trapped inside the structure next to his. She's scared that she'll die there, so Yoshiro feels guilty that he can't save her. Suddenly, someone kicks the opposite wall, and it's Miyuki trapped in the other structure. She scolds him for being a coward, but she breaks down in tears as their powers end up being useless. With both women scared, Yoshiro assures them that someone will rescue them. Just then, he hears someone humming the song his destined lady sang. He realizes that it's Miyuki, so she explains that the song just popped into her mind, but she doesn't remember where it came from. Realizing she is the woman he's been looking for, Yoshiro reminds her that she made up the song before they were born. This triggers Miyuki's memory, and the two acknowledge that they finally found each other. Using their telepathy, the two imagine meeting at the park, just like how Yoshiro always fantasized. There, they declare their love for each other and have their first kiss. This is interrupted when Aiko returns to the stage, claiming that she taught Miyuki that song since it's hers. This shocks Yoshiro. Meanwhile, Akiko is cornered as all her dolls have been rendered lifeless. Tatahiro scolds her for taking advantage of her powers, but the woman defends that people have always ignored her, so destiny gave her powers to make copies who would listen to her. She then declares that her master will arrive soon to end them all. To their surprise, she reveals that her master is Aiko. Hearing this, Julie takes the risk and uses her power on Akiko. This breaks Aiko's spell on the woman, leading Takahiro to realize that the mastermind's power is not only to read memories but also to alter them. Akiko has been working against them due to the fake memories that Aiko planted on her. On the stage, Aiko tells Yoshiro that she's the girl he met before he was born. She then has the other ladies taken away before releasing Yoshiro. Just then, the rest of the ESP forces arrive, questioning Akiko about her plans. The woman declares that she wants to wipe humanity out since they're all evil for destroying nature. She decides that there's no room for greed in the world, so only God's chosen one will stay. She announces that this chosen one is Yoshiro. He's the only one whose memory she can't alter, believing that this is because she genuinely loves him. With this, she plans to create a new world with him. Refusing to let the woman destroy the world, Julie challenges Aiko, but her power doesn't work since the woman doesn't see her actions as evil. Instead, she believes her motive is pure love. With that, Aiko attacks Julie's mind, making her lose consciousness. The rest of the ESP force moves to fight, but Aiko easily defeats them by erasing their memories. Seeing this, Yoshiro calls her evil, so Aiko asserts that he should accept that they're destined to be together. If he doesn't, she'll kill him. The villain then walks away, leaving the man time to decide. Takahiro uses this chance to convince Yoshiro to help him gather a new team, but the man thinks it's pointless. He still believes his life is for the woman he loves, so Yoshiro focuses on saving her instead. Understanding this, Takahiro reminds reminds him that their future depends on him before letting him go. Yoshiro goes to meet Aiko and finds that she's altered Asami's and Miyuki's memories, making them childish. Aiko then invites him to fulfill their promise and be together, but Yoshiro refuses. She reminds him that she can rewrite everyone's memories to control them, so he should join her if he doesn't want the others harmed. Suddenly, the man turns to them, declaring that he'd rather please himself while fantasizing about women than actually be with her. He asserts that she is not his special lady and presents her with his impurity. Because of this, Aiko cries out in both heartbreak and anger. With her belief in pure love shattered, the villain leaves and breaks her influence over the city, causing everyone to regain their minds and cover themselves. The rest of ESP Force joined the others. Having recovered from Aiko's spell, they thank Yoshiro for saving them, and the man is excited that he's become the hero he wanted to be. However, now he's torn between Asami and Miyuki. Unsure which of them he likes, days go by and everything returns to normal. Akiko even enrolls in Yoshiro's school, where she wonders about finding a boyfriend, revealing that her preference for women was also Aiko's influence on her. One night, Yoshiro wakes up and peers from a tree where he was safe and happy in his mother's womb. Because of this, he runs to embrace her and finally recognizes that love is more fulfilling than physical desires. As he happily goes to school, he passes by Keiko, Saya, Mitsui, and Peiko, who all sing the song from his destined lady. He ignores this, but even his schoolmates sing the same song, confusing him. Unbeknownst to him, when his mother went home after that fateful day, she was joined by other pregnant ladies. He telepathically connected to all the unborn girls that day, and they eventually grew up to become the significant women he met throughout his life. Because of this, Yoshiro is back to fantasizing about these ladies like he'd done before becoming a psychic. Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.